Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
It's me, Egbert, once again. I'm the new owner of this station. I went out and hired the best talk radio consultant, Jeff Allen from News Talk STL, and told him to hire the worst talent he could find. Jeff did exactly as I told him. Ladies and gentlemen, here are Brad and John.
Our final segment. Man, how quick this show goes through. How quick the show goes through. You know what? I started off the show by saying that my goal this week was to complete 5 days and not have any days off because unfortunately I had a little bit of downtime there last week and the week before. But then I found out that Juneteenth is Wednesday, and I don't know if we can go on the air on Juneteenth.
I don't think we can. I think we have to reflect on all the horrible things that your ancestors did, Brad.
Yeah. Well, how about some of my family members?
Yeah.
You know, I will say this. My middle son, I have 3 sons. I have 4 kids, boy, girl, boy, boy. That's the way they were, the order of their birth, okay? And my middle son is in town. He lives in Boston now, and was very nice. Him and my youngest son and their mother took me out to dinner last night, and for Father's Day, okay? I am not a small guy, okay? I'm not small by any means, but yet my middle son is 6'8". My oldest son is 6'6". My youngest son is 6'4". My daughter is 5'10". My daughter has a stepson who is, ready for this, 7'1". My daughter's wife, my son-in-law, is 6'8". When I'm around these family members, I look like I'm 5'2". You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
you look like a manlet.
Right, like.
And you said your daughter's wife. You mean your daughter's husband, right?
Yeah, my daughter's husband. Yeah,
you never know these things.
Yeah, you never know. He's like 6'8", and her stepson. This is her husband's son from another marriage. Is 7'1". He's a basketball player. Did play at Butler. I think he's with Evansville now. So anyway, that was the fun night last night. Okay, now topic du jour right now. I'm going to bring up a local name, and I'm just going to say MEC because I was confused. I don't want to call her Mary Elaine. It's Mary Elizabeth Coleman, correct?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. I read a story over the weekend that reminded me of her because when she was on the air with us, she told this story about how she gets protesters at her house all the time. And this is a story about Ted Cruz down in Houston. I think it's Houston or is it Dallas? He lives in one of those two. I thought it was. I'm trying to think.
It was Lukenbrock because there was Whaley and Willie and the boys.
Anyway, wherever his house is, he's in Texas. Okay, the protesters show up, and they for the most part, they're there. Friday evening, when anti-Israel protesters gathered outside Cruz's Texas home for the 23rd time since February 10th. 23rd time. They're out there screaming, yelling, and stuff like that. Okay, nobody's ever going to protest me. At least I don't think they will. But, man, if they did, I would have a field day with this.
You would. I can only imagine what you would do, Brad.
I would have a field day with this. First off, I would set up my old school disco sound system, which is a couple thousand watts. I would set that up on my front lawn, and I would just play like nothing but Billy Don't Be a Hero kind of music. Matter of fact,
yeah.
Remember that story that came out that I can't remember what city had a problem with the vagrants and the homeless who were like huddling at various bus stops and things like that, and the city put in a sound system. They started playing classical music. Remember?
Yeah, it just drives them right out.
Right, and some of the 7-Eleven type stores, some of the C stores that had the same problem with the not so desirables who would just huddle outside their store, never come in and buy anything, and chase off customers. They started playing classical music and stuff like that. And then second off, what I would do is I would just have a standing order with Domino's and say, okay, Domino's, here's what I want you to do. It's Friday night. The protesters are back. 20 pepperoni pizzas. Deliver them right now. And then have hire a food truck to come by, and just give them food, and then not only that, a lot of times they're out there playing drums, they're beating on 5-gallon pails and things like that. I would hire a professional drummer to just set up his drums and just say, okay, I need you to play In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida over and over again for the next 3 hours. Can you do that? Yes, sir, no problem. I would have a field day with that. And then I would go out I would go out on my front lawn and I would be high-fiving these guys. Hey, man, good to see you. Thanks for coming back. It's been quiet around here. The neighbor's been saying, hey, Ted, where's your protesters at? Well, I'm going to bring them back.
Yeah. Well, and Mary Elizabeth Coleman's story is that she went out there, and I wasn't familiar with this brand of sparkling water before, but there's something called a Topo Chico, something like that. And she offered them sparkling water, and she said that they got enraged because she was being kind to them, which tracks. Like if you're kind to somebody who just is fueled by blind rage, they're probably going to be baffled. They're going to be angry. It's the good juxtaposition of somebody who is quite kind versus somebody who's just generally angry.
Well,
get it?
But see, that to me is an interesting negotiating point because of the fact that if you're the United Auto Workers, what's that guy's name? Sean Fain or something like that?
Yeah, I think it's something like that.
And he did his tour of all the brands in the United States where if you don't double our guys' pay, we're going to shut this place down. And let's say Chris Farley's cousin, who runs Ford, said, once again, I'm not kidding about that. If you look at what's his name, Jim Farley, I think his name is. He's the CEO of Ford. Like if you look at him and you look, and then that he's Jim Farley, that he's Chris Farley's cousin, you'll go, okay, I do see it. A little similarity. Okay, if when Mr. Fain comes in his office and he says, and Farley says, you know what? I was expecting you. You know what? You're right. We just have not treated the workers right. And how much do you want an hour? You want $35 an hour? How about $55 an hour? No, I tell you what. Let's do $65 an hour. Sean Fain, they would have to have the paramedics come in, put the paddles on him because he would have a heart attack. What?
Yeah, they have to have somebody to fight against.
Right. You mean I don't have to go and strike? I don't have to stand up on top of the back of my pickup truck and yell and scream and, hey, we want. They won't negotiate with us. See, that's the crazy thing. Why? Like, for example, I've had a situation where throughout my business career where I've had some scrapes with various people and attorneys have been involved. And one time I got a nasty gram from an attorney, mailed it to me, wasn't happy about something that happened. And the next day I show up in his office and his receptionist says, do you have an appointment? I go, no. I go, why are you here? I got this letter. And she says, well, why are you here? I said, contact me as soon as possible. Here I am. I'm ready to contact. I'm making contact.
Yes, exactly.
I'm here in person. And so I'm in the lobby for 5-10 minutes, and finally another assistant comes out and says, now why exactly are you here? I have this letter. Is this law firm I'm at right now? Yes, it's that. What does that say? The very contact me immediately. Okay, I got the letter yesterday. I am here today. I am making contact. I'd like to meet with Well, he just doesn't meet with people. Okay, so in other words, he's being disingenuous by saying, contact me?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Well, normally you would send a counter, you would have your attorney. Look, I don't want to get attorneys involved. I know, because what happens when you get attorneys involved? Everybody loses as far as their bank account is concerned, except for the attorneys.
A lot of money.
They all make money. So finally, the guy comes, and we're not talking about a young guy. I'd say at the time he's maybe mid to late 50s. He brings me into his conference room, and he says to me, I've been practicing law for a long time. I've never had anybody show up. And I go, so I don't quite understand that. Explain that to me. Well, that's not how the way things are done. I go, well, explain to me what I was supposed to do. Well, and he goes, you're supposed to have your attorney contact me. You know what? Cut out the middleman. Here I am. Let's talk. And he was like totally taken aback by that. Once again,
and just think how often, Brad, in this era too, where it's exacerbated by social media, where people are terrified of having a face-to-face conversation because when you send a letter, roughly what era was that? What year was that?
About 8 or 9 years ago.
So just think year by year as older attorneys leave and newer attorneys come in, more and more I think we just see that as the younger generations are used to hiding behind keywords and social media profiles and puffing out their chest online, you have a larger percentage of the population who's just afraid to have a face-to-face conversation. Now, in a rare plug for my book, Brad. I talk about this on page 65 of my book. But most of these folks are just terrified of having a face-to-face conversation with the person that they're either harassing or stalking or trolling. They can't fathom having that face-to-face conversation. But what you did is, not only did you take out the middleman there, but you said, okay, there's some sort of an issue or at least a disagreement. Let's talk about this.
Right, exactly.
And that's why it's so unheard of, Brad. Nobody does that anymore.
Well, okay, but let's go back to the Ted Cruz thing, and let's use your knowledge of what your book, give a plug for that book again.
Yeah, it's called Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. You can go to johncombest.com. It's at the bottom of the links every day.
Excellent book. I have a copy myself. John sent me one of the original copies. Actually, it was like one of the proof copies or something?
Copy, yeah.
Proof copy of that. Okay, and
right.
Easy to find if you want to order it on Amazon. You can just go on and just search his name, John Combest. The book comes right up. Combest. Okay, let's go back to the Ted Cruz thing. He's got the protesters show up every, 23 times since February, something like that. Okay, here's scenario number 2. The protesters out in his front lawn. They're banging and screaming and yelling and stuff like that. He says to his wife, "Hey, honey, let's go out and talk to him." So he goes out with his smartphone and he starts doing selfies. "Hey, what's your name?" And book, and hold on a minute, and he stands there with his phone. "I'm putting this up on X right now. Hey, I'm out here on my front lawn with Jim Smith, who is with the We Hate Everything campaign, and he's, Jim's a nice guy. Matter of fact, he lives right here in the Houston area, and he's got a wife and kids. He's got a cat named Jim. Can you send me a picture of your cat so I can put that on?" I mean, wouldn't that totally disarm them?
Yeah, you think it would. Now, as one point of fact, I believe Mary Elizabeth Coleman said that a lot of these folks have their faces covered, like they don't want to be identified. I believe she said that. But it all goes back to the idea, Brad. If you had, again, or if these folks, let's say, are outside a congressional office and you brought them in, they're there to make a point. They're there to control their own message. They're not there to have productive conversation about any kind of common ground or misunderstanding, because that's not the point.
But don't you, by doing the crazy stuff that I say, like Ted Cruz going out there and taking selfies with him, doesn't he essentially take control of the narrative at that point?
Agree. And I'm just saying why the protesters have no incentive to be civil. Or I would agree. I would do the same thing. And that's the same example of, so back in the day, for folks who've driven around Page and Lindbergh, we would have often outside Monsanto, back when being anti-GMO was actually a thing, when people thought that GMOs were dangerous or risky or something like that. We would go out there, and folks, not just from our security team, but sometimes from our comms team, would go out there and at least try to have a conversation about what they're talking about. And they don't, most of the time, the folks don't have, first of all, they're surprised anybody comes out and doesn't attempt to, be mean to them. But in most cases, they're not looking to have a conversation. They're looking to get a picture taken. Hey, look at us. We're outside Monsanto. Continue to please send us more money so we can stand outside Monsanto again with a sign. Can
I correct you on something?
Sure.
You said Page and Lindbergh.
Yeah.
Page and Lindbergh?
Olive and Lindbergh.
Oh, you said Page and Lindbergh. Okay, I'm going like Page and Lindbergh. That's where you like nice things is.
It is, and we had a campus that was right there at Page and Lindbergh too, Brad, on North Campus. Remember?
No, not in Page and Lindbergh. You were on the north side of Olive.
It was a street down. Thank you for your traffic reporter correction.
Remember, I used to spend a lot of time in a helicopter, so. If you said there was an accident in Page and Lindbergh and it was a Page and Olive, that's a big faux pas.
Yeah, that's true.
Don Miller would come down from heaven and be mad at you about that. Okay, so you're saying. So did you ever do that yourself? Did you ever go out and talk to the protesters?
No, I never went out there. But we also had. I did do in the early days in 2008 when the anti-GMO thing was going on. I did have some email conversations with folks who were on the other side, who were clearly agitating, and social media interactions. And we had great folks on our team who managed a lot of that too. And in some cases, they were just, I had a fantastic boss, my first boss, who would have a lot of those conversations with folks, via email, who were putting out blatant disinformation. And he gave me probably among the best advice I ever got in my career there, which was just remember the folks that are online all the time that hate your company or hate your cause, They're people who have mortgages, they have kids, they have real life problems. In most cases, they're just trying to pay their bills. And so if they put out misinformation or disinformation, you know what? They're getting whatever nonprofit they're working for. They're just trying to put food on their table. So just remember that when you fight back against them. It puts it in the proper context, I think. And I've tried to have a little bit more compassion about folks. And, in many cases, they feel that they're right. They feel that they're on the correct side of whatever battle they're on.
John, I hear what you're saying, but I think maybe that was 14, 15 years ago, but in today's context, I don't think a lot of these people do have families. I don't think they have homes. I think a lot of these people are just...
Yeah, that's true.
No, I mean, sincerely.
That's a fair point.
I mean, I don't think that the guy that is balancing or the guy who's the manager at Discount Tire, who's working a 40-hour work week. I don't think he's the guy who's in front of Mary Elizabeth Coleman's house protesting her.
I don't think so. No, that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
I think it's the people who are the let's say I don't want to say nonconformists because that makes it sound like.
How about disaffected?
Or the people who are like, well, the reason I live with my uncle is because of the fact that the man's got his foot on my throat,
And the thumb is on the scale, and it's
right.
Not fair.
Thumb's on the scale of justice.
Now, you're old enough to remember, Brad, and I'm old enough to remember Occupy Wall Street. So in 2009, we had people that were clogging up streets in New York and other places. And, it was the same thing. The world's unfair and everything sucks, so we're going to destroy everything.
Can I tell you a weird story about that? You should bring that up.
Oh, yeah, please do.
Once again, I have this thing in the back of my mind, which has been embedded by one of my professors at my J school, good old Camille Winter, Kamil, who was just a tremendous influence on me, and ironically an influence on so many people. At the time, we all hated him. Now we look back at him as this incredible, inspirational teacher who taught us the way journalism should be. Okay, I went down one Friday night to, what do they call that right there between that area that has they recently redid it, but it had the sunken area down there. You know what I'm talking about? Gateway Mall or whatever. Where the Occupy St. Louis campaign was. Okay.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, I don't. Were they down by the Arch? I don't remember.
No. They were all down that area between it. On one side of it was Bush, was like where Mike Shannon's was, and the other side it was like Hooters.
Ballpark Village area?
No. It's what they call it's supposedly the Gateway Mall. There's no buildings. It's just immediately west of the old courthouse, and it goes on.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, and there's usually a lot of homeless people there.
Keener Plaza, isn't that what it's called?
Keener Plaza, yeah.
Keener Plaza. Okay.
Yeah. So there's like a pit in the middle where they'd have angry rallies and whatever.
Right. Okay. So I go down there one night, and it was a Friday night. I remember this very well because how do I know this? Because. And, once again, Brad gets on Metrolink and goes down there in Metrolink. I think I parked my car at Umsel South or something like that. And I want to investigate Occupy St. Louis. So I jump in my car, jump in Metrolink, get out down there. And the time was, I got down there about 9 o'clock. And I'm walking around down there. And what's interesting was they were all like in a tizzy because of the fact that something had happened. I can't remember what whole circumstances were. And I actually got, you're not going to believe this crazy story. I guess they thought I was one of them, although I wasn't quite dressed like them. And I actually got in on a meeting where they were having like this impromptu, okay, what do we do now? It's coming up on 10 o'clock and the TV stations are here. We know Channel 4 and Channel 5's here. What are we going to do? What are we going to say? And they were like sort of clueless. It was sort of funny because, and then with one guy, well, what do you think? And I'm going like, oh, what is this? So I hung around, and the reason that is sort of indelibly etched in my mind is that as I was getting back on the Metrolink, probably about 10:30, imagine me Friday night riding Metrolink, to the point where you ever seen the movie Death Wish? Anyway, so I'm on my Metrolink train headed back west to my car at Umsel South, and my phone keeps going off. All these friends of mine that saw me on television. A couple of them saw me on Channel 4. A couple of them saw me on Channel 5. And I was sort of intermixed with the group, and they're going, what are you doing down there with the Occupy people?
Listen, I've had an ideological breakthrough. And I've now decided that my lifetime of working, both as a curb boy and in every other job, was misaligned with my values, and my real job should be sleeping at night at Keener Plaza and fighting the man.
It was just kind of funny because of the fact that I'm like embedded with them and they didn't kick me out. I'm listening to them. And the funny part of it was they had no clue of what to do. They were there because they were there to protest, but they didn't really know. In other words, if you let's say if I was the mayor and I walked, okay, hey, you guys, I know you're down here protesting. What exactly do you want? I don't have
no idea. They couldn't answer that.
They would have given me an answer. Well, we want world peace. Okay, I'm the mayor of the city of St. Louis. I don't think I can acquire that for you. Second choice, John, it's been fun.
We're going to make it through a full week this week. And now we're still going to do our show on Juneteenth, right? Or are we going to acknowledge whatever the pretend holiday is?
Wouldn't miss it for the world. Say goodbye, John.
See you guys tomorrow.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?